Hi guys, today I thought I would take the opportunity to share with you my positive hypnobirthing labour story. Now, I'm fully aware that my little boy is now 21 months old. Before he got any older, I thought it was about time, whilst it wasn't too much of a past memory, to share that experience. Now, when I was pregnant, I was really shocked by the amount of women that was just so obsessed with sharing their negative stories with me, knowing that I was pregnant and knowing that I was going to have to go through labour at some point anyway. So I knew then that if I did have a positive story, that I would always share it with someone, because I think it can make a huge difference. It's honestly like women want to compete with who's got the worst story, and this just baffled me. Now, we were trying for quite a long time to have Leo to fall pregnant, and very early on I knew that I wanted a hypnobirth. So luckily I had started reading up on hypnobirthing, I was looking on YouTube and I was looking online. And we did decide to go down the route of just to like self-teach ourselves. So it can be done, but you do need to be really, really disciplined. The first book that I read was the Marie Mongan, I'm really sorry if I'm saying this wrong, Hypnobirthing. I got this on Amazon, really reasonable on there, and I read this very, very early on in my pregnancy. And if I hadn't read this, I think those negative stories would have had such a worse impact on me. I just felt really confident going into labour just from hypnobirthing and reading up on it and looking into it. And I think that's an amazing thing to have. Just that confidence. I wasn't scared. At no point was I scared or nervous. I was ready for it. I felt, really, really confident. So I thought, I would share my story because I just thought that would be the right thing to do. So after reading the Marie Mongan book, I started looking at what audio I would like to play during my labour. I came across one online. Let me just go and get the disc for you because I can't remember the name. Okay, it is the Natal Hypnotherapy by Maggie Howell. I did actually look at some videos done by Maggie Howell on YouTube. It's the Labour Companion CD that I bought it online, that got sent to me. Then I downloaded this onto my iPod so that I could listen to it with my earphones in. I do think it's really important to, if you're going to purchase a hypnobirthing disc, to listen to like a snippet of it first, because if you find the person's voice annoying, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, all different people are going to be annoying to us. It's the last thing that you're going to want when you're in labour and you're a little bit agitated. Obviously, you're in a complete different, situation that you normally are. You don't want someone's voice that's going to irritate you or annoy you even further. So definitely listen to a few and see which one you prefer. But this one I really, really liked. The next thing that I did was get my husband to read the book actually and to look into it as well. This is something that, if we do have future children, which hopefully we do, that I feel that he would need a little bit more training. Is that the right word? Training? I don't know. I think maybe a class would be better for us next time, just because when I was in labour, I felt like there was a point where I had been in labour for quite a few hours and I could have done with him being able to bring me back into the hypnobirthing. It was when I got into the water actually and I took the earphones out, that I could have just done with a bit of helping hand then really to get back into it. But even still, it was still a very positive hypnobirthing story. So getting onto the story, I had actually been in stop-start labour for 18 days when I finally went into labour properly, which sounds absolutely horrific. At the time it probably was, and I was crying a lot, but it wasn't full labour. It was probably more like Braxton Hicks, but I would have like 7 hours of contractions, always overnight. They'd get to like 5 minutes apart and I think, oh, we're going to be going soon, and then they would gradually stop. But I tried to turn this into a positive, and I thought, well, if I just keep practicing my hypnobirthing breathing techniques that I had learnt, it could just be like a practice run every time, and that's what I did. So I do feel like I had a fair amount of practice breathing and stuff like that, and that did really help. Before that, I was really strict and disciplined with myself to make sure I practiced it every night from at least 30 weeks pregnant. That's why we didn't go to a class, because I knew that I could be disciplined with myself to do it. If you're not the type that's going to be as disciplined, then I would definitely say go down the class route and get a little bit more help. So yeah, the night that I went into labour, it was actually bang on midnight, so it's a bit like a Cinderella story of labours. I looked at the clock, which I was always in a habit of doing because I got up to have a wee, as most of us when we're pregnant, we're literally weeing all night. It's so annoying. And when I went a wee, it felt really strange. It was almost like, it felt like I was sucking up, but there was obviously liquid coming out and there was all like bits in there. And I was like, oh, this is a bit strange. I was like, I wonder if that's my waters breaking. Like, I really wasn't sure. It's my first time, you know, I'm a first time mum. So I was like, okay, something's going on here. And then my contractions started again. So I went in and they were very, very strong immediately. And I was like, oh, okay, I think this is it. Like, this has got to be it. So I woke my husband up straight away. I was like, these are a lot stronger than what I've been having actually. I think we should start timing them because, you know, it's quite intense. And straight away, they were 3.5 minutes apart and they were 2 minutes long, my contractions. So we only gave it half an hour at home. We didn't give it an hour, even though they do say time it for an hour. But I was like, these are strong, these are consistent. This is definitely, you know, this is definitely it. I had my earphones on straight away. I was kind of like rocking and keeping everything really calm at home. We got to the hospital by 1 o'clock, they said to come in. And by this point, my contractions were 2.5 minutes apart and they were 2 minutes long. By the time we got put into like the little, little side room where they come and kind of check you over and everything, the nurse was actually having a job to check me because she wanted me to lay back on the bed. And my contractions were so close together at this point that by the time I laid myself back, I was like, I've got to sit up again because they're coming again. And it was so uncomfortable to lay on my back. So by the time she checked me, she was like, oh, it was hard to say. I think you're only about 3 centimetres. So why don't you go home and have some breakfast? I was like, no way. There is no way I'm leaving this hospital. I was like, this is it. Like, they're so strong, and it was so, I couldn't walk whilst the contractions were happening. Like, I just had to focus. I had my music on. I was like, no, I'm staying. I'm definitely staying. And she was like, okay, well, you'll have to wait in the waiting room because there's not actually a room for you anyway right now. I was like, no, that's fine. I'd given her my my birthing plan, so she knew that I wanted to hypnobirth. She knew I had my music in. She knew not to offer me any pain relief unless I asked for it, because that was something that, I don't know, I felt really strong about. I just felt like I'd never been put in that situation before, and I'm a bit of a wimp, to be honest. And if someone was asking me like, do you think you want to have like an epidural or something, I don't know, part of me might have been like, oh God, should I have one? Is there something wrong that I should have one? So that's why I chose to do that in my birthing plan. We then went into the waiting area. We were the only ones in there. This is like maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning by this point. And I had the hypnobirthing music on in my ears. I was just on all fours, like on the sofa, kind of just rocking and stuff like that. My husband actually had a little bit of a sleep at this point because nothing was really happening. And then it got to about 6:30 a.m. and the midwife came back and she's like, look, there is a room become available. She's like, it's one of the water birth suites, and I know on your birthing plan that you had down that you would like to try for a water birth. She was like, if you want to, she was like, don't want to make any, too much pushy like suggestions. She was like, but I can go and fill the tub up now for you if you want. I was like, yeah, that would be great. At this point I was struggling a little bit. Obviously it had been quite a few hours. I had no pain relief, nothing at all, just with my earphones in. So we went into the room, kind of got all their bags in there. I got stripped off and got into the water and was just trying to get a bit comfortable. And then she checked me over again and she was like, oh, the good news is you're definitely admitted now, because from what I can tell in the water, it could be give or take a centimetre. You're about 6 centimetres dilated. And I was like, thank Christ for that. I was like, just put the band on me. Like, this is it. We're staying, we're having the baby. I was like, I just knew that this was going to happen quite quickly now. She was like, look, you're not going to be examined again probably another 4 hours. You're a first time mom, these things can take time. I was like, it's fine. I was like, I really don't think it's going to take that long. Like, I know my own body. I knew. She was like, can you eat anything yet? Can you drink anything? I was just like, no way, absolutely not. My contractions, had about a 10-second gap in between them before the next one was rolling in, and I literally had that 10 seconds to try and like take a sip of water and swallow it before the next one was coming. Like, it was quite intense. Everything was very calm. There was no like screaming or shouting or anything like that. I was just in my own little zone by this point. Then the next midwife took over at this point, because there was like a handover at the hospital. This is the lady that actually delivered Leo. When she came in, within about half an hour, I was like, you know, can I have some gas and air now, if that's okay, just to help with my breathing? Like, I'm quite struggling now. I'm quite tired. She was like, yeah, that's fine. So they set the gas and air up for me. I was really struggling to get comfortable in the pool, I must admit. And then she did ask me if I could get out the pool to try and have a wee, and unfortunately I couldn't, so they had to fit a catheter to drain, obviously, my bladder. It was around about this point, they got me back in the water, and very quickly I was like, do you know what, this water just isn't doing it for me. I think I'm used to having really hot baths, and when it obviously has to be a certain temperature, it was pretty much lukewarm, and I was absolutely sweating, but it just wasn't hot enough to take the pain away for me. I know for so many people, I've watched so many lovely water births and been like, that is what I want, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. So they said, look, why don't we get you out? And I was like, okay. I was like, they were struggling to obviously get me up because I was struggling to move, and obviously I had about 10 seconds in between each one. And I said, look, I really feel like I'm struggling to not push. And our NCT teacher, had told us about not pushing too early. And I was like, God, I don't want to do myself any damage, but I really am struggling not to push. And she was like, oh, you're not due to be examined for like another 3.5 hours. You'll be fine. I was like, no, honestly, I'm really, really struggling. Like, I'm blowing out the candles that the NCT teacher had told me, but I do feel like I'm bearing down. And she said, okay, let's just examine you again. You know, she said, your breathing has changed. You are mooing a little bit, like, other than the breathing that you were doing before. She's like, I could definitely feel that. So she said, do you mind if I get you out of the water, because you wanted to get out anyway, and it's easier for us to examine and get like a better examination. So I'd done that, and she's like, you're correct, you're 10 centimetres dilated. She's like, let's push this baby out. I did mention to both of the midwives, I didn't want to be on my back when I gave birth. I don't know, I just found this really unnatural, and I have quite a bad back anyway. I had a back injury when I was about 18, and it does flare up quite often, and I just felt like if I was on my back, it was going to be more painful. And I had looked into the whole thing with the coccyx when you give birth, having to kind of come back a little bit, so it's quite unnatural to be laid back on your back. So I tried on all fours for a little while, and we were pushing at this point, and the midwife said, do you mind if I make a suggestion? And I was like, no, go for it. And she said, there's this thing that we call like the potty. And it is literally like an open potty on the floor. She was like, do you want to try that? She was like, and your husband can sit behind you, and you can like lean on his like knees. And we were like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'll try that if it's going to help. So I was pretty much squatted at this point on this potty. And she had a little mirror that she was using to like check when I was pushing with my contractions, and then she showed my husband. I didn't want to look at this point. I didn't look at all, to be honest. I pretty much had my eyes closed for the whole of labour. For me, that just really helped like keep in my zone. So my husband, in the end, they left the mirror there so that he could watch when I was pushing, and he was just like, it was amazing. Like, he was, I can see his head, like he's right there. And then he was coaching me through my contractions, which was really nice, because it was like he was more involved with the labour. And even now we look back on that, and he's like, I'm so happy that we did that and you allowed me to do it. Because I know for some people they'd be like, you're not looking down there at all. He was like, it didn't like put me off or anything like that. You're watching it in a complete different thing, really. He was like, yeah, it was amazing to see. And then as I started to crown, the midwife was like, we need to get you off that potty now, because you can't really give birth on that. She was like, do you want to get onto your all fours again on the bed? And I was like, yep, that's fine. So we got onto all fours, and she was like, you know, you're really not far off now. The head's right there. And something that really stuck with me actually was something that my mother-in-law had said. And she was like, when you are crowning, don't be scared, because the more you hold back and don't push, you are going to be there even longer. Like, you're going to endure that bit of pain even longer. And I must admit, I was in so much of my own zone at this point. Yes, of course, it did hurt, and no amount of hypnobirthing is going to take away that pain, I don't think. But I just dealt with it fine. Like, it was fine. I didn't like freak out or anything like that. I was just like, this is it. Like, he's going to be here. And another part of my kind of discussions with my midwife and my birthing plan was that I would love to receive the baby myself if possible. Obviously, I wouldn't want to get in the way of any medical complications. And it was at this point my midwife was like the head was out at this point. She was like, look, the next push, your baby's going to be here. She was like, if you want to receive him yourself, then you need to come off the gas and air, so I can, you know, I can see that you're kind of with it and you know what's happening. And I was like, take it. I just gave it away. And she explained to me, she was like, look at me, like look me in the eye so I can see that you're kind of focused, you know, you understand what's happening. She was like, when the baby comes, she was like, I'm gonna push him through this way and then guide him up to you so you can take him under the arms. And with the next push, that's exactly what we did. So I literally took Leo under the arms as she guided him through and held him up in front of me, and he just looked me directly in the eye. He didn't really cry. He just looked amazing. He was just looking at me straight in the eye, and it was the most incredible thing. I had my husband this side, and we were just like, oh my God, he's here. He's just looking at us, and it was so surreal. Yeah, and that's my positive birthing story. I hope I've not waffled on too much and that you found it interesting. As I said, I find it so important to share positive birthing stories because it's literally like every woman out there wants to compete for the most horrific birthing story. I don't know what it is, especially when you're pregnant, you hear it all. But if you are pregnant at the moment, I don't think it's rude if someone starts telling you like this negative story to say, look, do you mind telling me after I've given birth? Because you're just trying to stay in a positive mindset. And bearing in mind at the moment, obviously I'm currently filming this during the coronavirus quarantine, and I hope that it's not distasteful or disrespectful filming it. I still think you can have a very positive labour during this time. Two of my friends have actually just given birth in the past 2 weeks or 10 days. And I've got another friend that is preparing to give birth in the next couple of weeks. So all going to be coronavirus, you know, quarantine babies, if you like. You can still have a positive labour story. And obviously I'm definitely thinking of anyone that's just had a baby or going through it at the moment, because there must be an added stress and an added worry. But yeah, I hope that you found this helpful. I would highly recommend looking into hypnobirthing, whether you manage to get like a class. I know you can get online classes at the moment, so if you are looking for a class now, you can get online classes that are very good. All of ours was done online, was self-taught through YouTube, through books, through audios that we listened to. Some of my favourite YouTubers to watch for positive labour stories was Louise Pentland, Emily Norris and Hannah Maggs. They had lovely positive birthing stories to listen to. Yeah, they were my favourites, to be honest. If you like this kind of thing and you like this kind of content, then please let me know in the comments down below and I'll continue to make it. And I'd love it if you could stick around and subscribe. Bye guys.